This is Crokinole Center, and there's still no new Crokinole games to share, but I've had a craving for competitive Crokinole, so I've been going back and watching some old matches, and happened upon this doubles game, which I think is really fascinating. It has a couple really interesting strategic decisions that happen in it, so I thought it might be worthwhile to share and try to explain why I find this game so fascinating. So this is sort of the classic rivalry of the 2010s between Jason and Ray Beierling and Justin and Fred Slater. This game takes place in the playoffs of the 2016 World Crokinole Championships, the doubles division, obviously. These two teams wouldn't have known it at the time, but they ended up finishing first and second. And the margin of victory between world champion and runner-up was as slim as flipping one round in this game from a win to a loss. And as you'll see, there's a couple pretty critical moments that happened in this game that ultimately determine who the world champion is. If you don't know who won the 2016 World Championships, I will leave you in suspense for now and won't reveal it until the end of the video. And if you want to watch the entire game without sort of any extra commentary that I'm adding right now, first you can find that video. It's 13 minutes long. There's a link in the description for that. So the first position we're going to look at is the 13th shot of the first round. The Slaters are down at 20, they don't have hammer, and they also really don't have any prospects on the board with which to generate any 20s. So they're going to make a very reasonable decision here, which I think a lot of teams would do in this position, is rather than going for a takeout on this red disc, they are instead going to try to create a sort of double tap between their black disc and bump up this red disc, hoping to put it somewhere along lines of this red arrow here to position the red disc in a spot so that when it's Justin Slater's turn in 2 shots time, he will have an opportunity to make a 20. So somewhere along the position of that red arrow is where Fred is trying to put this red disc on a tap-up play. So you can see Fred Slater isn't too pleased with where he positioned that red disc. He feels like he hit it too far. And now the Beierlings have to decide what they're going to do with their shot. So it's very interesting about competitive doubles plays. Anytime you see a team trying to set up their partner for a 20, you will frequently see the opposing team concoct all sorts of ways in which they can disrupt that chance for a 20 for their opposition. What's interesting here, though, is being that the Slaters haven't really put this red disc in an enviable position to score a 20, the Beierlings aren't really as concerned about it. I think if this red disc was in a bit of a better spot, somewhat closer to the 20 hole here, enough that when it comes to Justin Slater's turn, he can make like a takeout 20, then I think you would have seen the Beierlings a little bit more interested in trying to take away that chance and would go in for maybe a touch 20 of their own here, and either score a 20 or even if they don't score a 20, maybe they move their red disc, I don't know, somewhere closer in front of the hole that it would block the 20 opportunity for the Slaters. However, that's not the case here, and the Beierlings, being that the disc is further back, they know it's a lot tougher of a 20 opportunity. So the Beierlings instead decide to go for a takeout on one of these 2 black discs. The thinking being that to decide in terms of which one to take, Jason Beierling has a takeout opportunity on either disc, but if you look at Ray Beierling's opportunities when it gets to his shot, he'll have to deal with the one that Jason doesn't hit. And you can see the takeout opportunity is kind of limited for Ray Beierling. It's not easy to take out the one in the 15. So instead, Jason Beierling goes for the takeout on that one so that Ray will have an easier takeout on his shot. So Jason actually just missed a very similar shot to this takeout, but he makes it perfectly this time. And now Justin Slater, let's take a quick look at what his position looks like. So in Justin's shot, even though this red disc isn't in a perfect spot, he still has to go for a 20. They're down a 20, they need offense, and even though it's not in a perfect spot, this is their best opportunity to try to score a 20. So Justin's going to go for a touch 20 off this red disc. The touch 20 isn't that hard, except for the fact that the red disc is lined up perfectly to rebound into a peg. And the question mark is about how exactly that disc is going to hit that peg and come back. In a lot of cases, if you mishit this shot, the red disc rebounds and collects your shooting disc and disrupts its path toward the 20 hole and obviously causes you to not score a 20. So that'll be the difficulty for Justin Slater on his shot. You can see Slater pulls it off, and not only does he score a 20, he ends up leaving the red disc right next to the 20 hole so that Fred Slater is going to have a chance for a 20. So it looked like the Beierlings were maybe just forfeiting a chance for 120 to have 3 discs on the board, but now they're forfeiting 2 20s to their opponents who've now jumped ahead in the 20 count. So the pressure is really on Jason Beierling now to try to equalize the 20s again, but he ends up short, and the Slaters are looking at 3 discs with just a few shots left in this round, but they have a 20 advantage if they can find a way to get some takeouts here. Now, what's interesting is the Slaters look at a few different options, but simultaneously come to the same conclusion that the best opportunity is actually to go for a triple takeout. And it may be a little bit hard to see from this angle, but we'll take another look. And you can just see that there's actually, it's almost perfectly lined up for a triple takeout. If you hit the first disc straight on, there's a perfect ricochet off the angle of the second disc, which just shoots it out perfectly between the pegs. And the redirection is enough just to cause it to hit the corner of the next disc, causing it to causing the first disc in the 15 to shoot out this set of pegs, and the last disc to shoot out here for a triple takeout. So it's actually perfectly lined up. The only question mark is what's going to happen to the shooting disc for Justin Slater, which we'll see what happens here. And we see not only does he make the triple takeout, a perfect roll, incredible shot there. And the Slaters, who were down early in this round, now in the driver's seat, and they end up consolidating this round in the final 2 shots to come away with the first 2 points of this round. So I think it's really interesting to revisit that pivotal shot from Jason Beierling earlier in the round. There was the potential that they could have tried to disrupt the 20 opportunity for Justin Slater by either beating him to a 20 and scoring one of their own, or like I said, they could potentially end up rolling over top of the hole and then blocking the 20 opportunity, although it potentially could have just left another one. Remove these arrows here. That perhaps when he goes for that touch 20, he rolls into a spot that makes it, the 20 opportunity even easier for Justin Slater. So that was always a risk in that shot. So I don't really think there was anything wrong with not going for that touch 20, especially because the opportunity for Justin Slater and his shot seemed like it wasn't particularly favorable position. The only thing that maybe they could have changed was rather than going for the takeout on the 1 in the 15, rather instead go for the takeout on the 1 in the 10. The thing that would have changed here, if that happened, if we sort of assume that Jason hits that takeout on the 1 in the 10, we assume that Justin comes in, makes the same 20 anyway, and ends up rolling to the same spot. You would have seen then on Ray Beierling's shot, when it's his turn to shoot, he would actually have an opportunity to go for a rebound, perhaps, bounce off this peg and then sort of come back. Again, either scoring a 20 or perhaps just moving this disc out of the way. That's, I don't know, a little bit far-fetched to sort of think that strategy through about what if Justin Slater scores a 20 and perfectly sets up Fred for another 20 on his next shot. So I don't think there's really anything wrong with what the Beierlings decided to do, but a conservative strategy isn't going to hold up when the people you're playing not only execute perfectly, but also get perhaps a little bit lucky on their execution as well. So the Slaters strike first, but in the second round, the Beierlings respond, and they respond in a big way. There's really not much to analyze. There's nothing to analyze, really, from a strategy standpoint. I'll just put together a collection here of their 20s. They just put on a dominating performance in the second round, racing out to a huge 20 advantage and just cruising to the 2 points in this round with a couple of really well-struck shots. So after that second round then, the teams are tied up 2 points each. And the third round, again, another pivotal one that we're going to analyze here. So the first position to analyze in the third round is with 5 shots left for both teams. The Slaters are up at 20, but they don't have hammer, and Beierlings with an advantage on the board that they might be able to convert to get the win. So the Slaters are up 120, and although they aren't really looking, they're not desperate for 20s like they were in the first round. They will certainly take them if the opportunities are there. And Fred Slater's got a great chance for a takeout 20 here. This is really in the wheelhouse for a lot of top players. I don't know if it's necessarily a shot that players would make more than 50% of the time, but it's certainly something they would try 100% of the time to get a takeout 20 opportunity here. And if Fred Slater scores this, they'll be up 220s and a pretty commanding advantage. But the theme of the third round is we're going to see a lot of good players not make a lot of shots. So now we actually see Jason Beierling looking at a position which we basically looked at in the first round. It's almost an identical touch 20 shot to what he could have went for in the first round. You can see that he's going to go try to make a touch off this one disc in the 15, rolling for a 20. So let's see if the shot that he had the potential to go for in the first round, if he makes it this time, the Beierlings would love to get it to tie up the 20 count. And he makes it. Well, the black disc sort of rattles around a little bit there, and the Beierlings have tied up the 20 count. Justin Slater tries to respond with a ricochet 20, but it rolls over top of the hole. Now it's kind of interesting to look at for Ray Beierling just on the angles of about 3 black discs sitting in the 15. And the part about this is really interesting is that the Beierlings now tied in the 20s, so they have the hammer. Really all they want to do is just make some takeouts, try to avoid opportunities for the Slaters to score a 20, and they can win this round. So you'd think actually with 3 discs on in the 15 that there'd be a chance for a double takeout, maybe even a triple takeout as good as Justin's had in the first round. But in this position, actually, Ray Beierling really only has one opportunity for a single takeout, and there's really nothing else for him. It's kind of interesting to look at. He can't go for a takeout on one disc because it just lines up perfectly with his own. He certainly doesn't want to take out his own shot. He can't go for a double takeout because anything on lined up for here on the nearest disc to him is actually just lined up to redirect the second black disc directly into a peg, so it's not clear that he would actually take out any disc from that position. So it's kind of interesting that with all these discs on the board, Ray Beierling really only has one shot. And as you might expect, he, of course, makes that shot. And now let's consider the position for the Slaters. And now it kind of feels interesting for Fred Slater, even though there's 2 red discs on the board, he actually is going to have a real hard time taking out either of them. He has no angle to get at the one in the 15 because it lines up perfectly with his own black disc. He can't actually make the angle to come at it from something else. He'd be in the wrong quadrant to try to take a disc out in a different direction. So the only other disc is right here, and it's actually nestled really close to the pegs that Fred Slater's trying to make this takeout. Has to be really, really worried about if he can actually clear the pegs on this shot, because this red disc might just rebound right off this peg and sort of come back at a shooting disc and may not exit the board. Fred Slater just barely gets the takeout there. To keep 3 discs on, and it's really unclear who's going to come away with the 2 points here. And now the Beierlings spent some time trying to figure out what to do. But very similarly, there's just really not many takeout opportunities, so Jason settles for one shot in which he can try to get a takeout as best as possible, and you can see he actually kind of overhits it, trying to make sure he does not leave a shooter in a position where the Slaters can score a 20. Now, this is position facing Justin Slater, and we're down to last shots each. So Slaters, you would think, would have a sense of urgency here because they are tied in the 20s, and they should probably feel like they need to do something to a little bit aggressive to try to win this round. But I find it really interesting. The Slaters don't go for what I would think would be, a decent chance at a rebound 20. Rebound 20s are really hard, but this is there for Justin Slater to make a takeout, rebound off a peg here, and attempt to score a 20. But the Slaters don't do that. They actually just go for a single takeout, which I just find really interesting, that they sort of look at that and we're just satisfied with the single takeout. And I think it kind of speaks to the fact that these teams are, really feeling the nerves that they don't want to make a mistake. So they opt for a pretty conservative strategy here and just go for a single takeout. Now Justin makes his takeout and nestles up close to the pegs. And at this point, I really wish I could hear what the players were saying, because the Beierlings, you can see them eyeing up a couple of shots, which we'll look at in more detail in just a second. I really wish I could hear what they were discussing to see what shots they thought they needed to make here. So now it's really interesting to take a moment, because there's only 3 shots left to try to figure out what the best possible play is here. So if you're the Beierlings, you have the hammer, you're just trying to win on the board. But it's really hard to see what actually is the best shot to make. You definitely don't want to leave a 20 opportunity for Fred Slater on his shot. It might be a little bit easier to consider what would happen if both Ray Beierling and Fred Slater just put their discs in the ditch and it was just left up to Jason on his final shot. You can see here, he actually doesn't have a chance to get at this disc in the 15 to take it out, because it's sitting right on a peg. So there's no angle from there. Even if there's, sometimes people will take an angle from over here to try to get a shot, but actually the disc that's sitting in the 5 is perfectly blocking that. So Jason does not have a shot at all to get rid of that disc in the 15. And that disc, the 2 black discs are actually blocking Jason's shot to try to get at this disc that's sitting in the 10 as well. It would come into contact with this one in the 5 from this angle, and he can't take it through Hogan's alley either. And even taking it to try to come from over here is also kind of difficult too, because the pegs sort of get in the way. So for Jason Beierling, he really has very little opportunities, if it was his shot, to try to win this game on the final shot. So Ray has to address this a little bit and try to move the disc around in a little bit better position, or at least put his disc in a spot that when Fred Slater goes for a takeout, he'll leave Jason Beierling with a much easier takeout on his final shot. So with acknowledging that, there's really 3 shots available for Ray Beierling here. The most clear is for him to go after this one in the 15. He does have an angle on it here. It is a tough shot, but certainly makeable for a top player. The only concern I'm sure that was going through his mind with this one is you don't want to leave Fred Slater with a chance to score a 20. If Fred Slater scores a 20 on this next shot, it's basically game over. They're going to get the 2 points. So with coming into the 15 circle here, there's a chance that when you make that takeout, you might roll into a spot that there's a takeout 20 opportunity for Fred Slater on his shot. So I'm sure that is what's sort of causing some hesitation, and why the Beierlings are probably less likely to go for this takeout on the one in the 15. The other option you can see them looking at, but it seems they decide it's not really there, is to go for a double takeout on this one in the 10 and the 5. It would definitely be a little bit tight, I think, to sort of pull off that shot. Maybe don't have the diagram out perfectly because it kind of looks like it's there, but I think the Beierlings sort of look at it and decide it's not there, or perhaps there's a lot of risk in trying to go for it. The concern, again, also with this shot too, is that even if you make that double takeout, the question is, where does this red disc go? Because if you make that takeout and sort of rolls a little bit forward, there might be a chance for Fred Slater on his shot. Then again for a takeout 20, tough shot. But again, the Beierlings are trying to just eliminate all possible opportunities for Fred Slater to score a 20 on his final shot so they can win this round. So that really leaves then the third option, which is what Ray Beierling decides to go for, and he's trying to take out this disc that's sitting in the 10 here, while simultaneously also improving their score on the board and trying to roll into the 15 here, hoping to sort of outcount this disc in the 15. If Ray rolls into the 15, then it sort of outcounts, or it cancels out this disc for the Slaters here, and that does seem to improve their chances about winning this game. So it seems actually like a pretty good idea, because even where Ray Beierling rolls to, as long as he doesn't roll off a peg and sort of bounce closer to the 20 hole, that there won't be an opportunity for Fred Slater to score on his shot. Now, so we see what happens. Ray Beierling gets the roll he's looking for, but now you can see the Slaters lining it up for a double takeout opportunity here for Fred Slater. And he makes it, and you can see the Slaters are pretty happy with themselves that they got that shot, and now there's just nothing here for Jason Beierling on his shot. So then on Jason's last shot, he really has, after that double takeout by Fred Slater, just no chance. You can't go for a rebound 20 here because you won't get the takeout. The disc is just welded onto the peg, so there's no way he's going to be able to get 20 and the takeout, and there's 30 points on the board for black. So that won't win the game. He can't even go for like a double takeout off the 5 and the 10 here, because he would need a follow through as well, which is basically impossible when you're going for a double takeout. So that wouldn't even be able to tie the game. So there's really nothing. I think they end up lining up a shot here to try to get like a, basically a pure luck double, where if you push both this into the middle, maybe they'll both somehow exit the board, and maybe you can get a win from that. But it's just really nothing, and it's kind of amazing that we'll watch Jason take that shot now, that they really had nothing to shoot for when it came down to Jason's final shot, which is very surprising considering that they had the hammer, they were tied in the 20s, they seemed they'd done everything they needed to do to give themselves a winning position when it came down to the last shot, but there was just nothing there for Jason on his final shot. So now when we go back 2 shots to look at Ray's final shot, and I think that probably the best shot was actually to go for this one in the 15. There was the chance that he ends up missing this shot. It's not a very easy shot. There's a chance he leaves at 20, but ultimately there was no way Jason was going to be able to take out that disc in the 15. It was just welded on a peg from his perspective. There was no chance he was going to be able to get rid of it. So I think it would have been probably the best shot for the Beierlings to go after. But again, didn't really seem like there was anything wrong with what they were doing. But once again, just like in round 1, the shots that the Slaters pulled off ended up working out so perfectly that a conservative strategy just won't hold up. And I think in this case, the Beierlings really needed to take a little bit more aggression to win the game, to win these 2 points. But hindsight is 20/20. And I think in the moment there wasn't really anything wrong with what they did, but the Slaters were able to execute perfectly on those crucial shots. So now we'll skip forward to the 4th round, in which the Slaters get an advantage that they're able to hang on to. Open 20 scoring was really weak, actually, in this game. Surprisingly weak for 2 teams that ended up finishing 1st and 2nd. At the end of the game, the Beierlings ended up with an open 20 success rate of 3 out of 8 for 38%, and the Slaters went 3 for 10 for 30%, which is shockingly low. And it's not too surprising that the teams ran out of time. The 13-minute clock expired. Ended up going back and looking at the time taken per shot, and they were both pretty much equal in terms of the time that they took to get all their shots done. And but with the amount of discussion they had, it was too much discussion for both teams to be able to finish the complete 4 rounds. And the Slaters come away with a 6-2 victory. They ultimately end up winning then the 2016 World Championship. And I think what's really great about this game is that it shows that in doubles you can have crucial shots where everything is on the line, and even if you played poorly earlier on in the game, even if your strategy hasn't been perfect, in doubles those situations can come along where you make a perfect shot, and if you make that crucial shot, you'll end up winning the game, which just sort of makes for a lot of excitement in the doubles game in Crokinole. So yeah, that's it for this video. Hopefully you found some enjoyment of what was a departure from what the usual content is on this channel, but it is nice just to think about competitive Crokinole again every now and then.